Hello everyone, it's me Lamani and welcome to Wacky Wednesday. This build I put out today, I kind of started off just wanting to do a meme build, which then turned into still being a meme build, but one that's actually, I think, viable in a lot of endgame content due to the buffs that the Fire Staff received. Yes, is it kind of the easiest AFK one button meta build I have ever seen in my life? Yeah, I can set my flamethrower going, walk away from my computer for 25 seconds, come back, hit a mana potion, and do the same thing over and over and over again. While this build is very, very, very simple, there are a couple intricacies that you can kind of tweak into the build so that you can get even more damage output. It's going to involve using the Void Gauntlet as a damage cooldown and maintaining a Fireball stack as well. So there are some things that you can do. I think this build is mainly a PvE build, but because of the kit that we take Fireball and we take the Flame Dash, which make it still viable for PvP. This is essentially a Mage build just with one change that I think is very, very strong. It's a build that you could give to your son or daughter if you want to play video games with them. It is just a very good beginner build that is very easy to play, has high to moderate damage output, and is great for endgame, especially expeditions like Genesis because of Fire Staff damage. So that's why I started testing it on the same type of mobs so I could get the same kind of damage numbers. There's a lot of tweaks we can make to the gear. There's all kinds of stuff we can do, but this is by far the easiest high damage one button meta Fire Staff build. Before we get into the video, I just want to say thank you again for all the support that everybody is giving me. I appreciate it so much. If you could continue to keep doing that weird YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, tell your mom, your grandma, your dad, your whole family, all your friends, I'd appreciate it. We're still here. If you want to connect with me, feel free to leave a comment below, but also hit the description box and join us in the Discord. We have about 400 people in there now. This is crazy. The community we're building is fantastic. I'm excited to talk to everybody all day. Everybody's there all day. Any hour of the day, whether it's 1 a.m. or 1 in the afternoon, there's somebody there to chat with you. So feel free to join up. I also want to mention, I'm potentially doing some live streams pretty soon here. I want to at least do one on Friday, one on Saturday, possibly even today. I will keep the Discord notified and I will at everybody when I decide to stream. There could be one tonight, so keep that in mind, but for sure on Friday and Saturday. We'll be going on Twitch. I'll send out the link, get everything going. Nonetheless, thank you for everything. I appreciate every single one of you. So this Fire Staff had some changes in the most recent patch, and that's why I really wanted to take a look at Flamethrower. Okay, Flamethrower I think is one of the funniest abilities in the game. The fact that I can sit there for a full 20-second count without doing anything and now got a damage buff in combination with all the other buffs that we can get on the Fire Staff and even comboing it with Oblivion on the Void Gauntlet make it a very lethal combo in PvE. And like I was saying, we can flex some of our abilities and even still use Flamethrower in PvP. So take a seat, get your popcorn out, take a breath, and just listen to this Wacky Wednesday, because we're digging into some off-meta Fire Staff play that is so easy and puts out so much damage that you can just take your hands off the keyboard. All right, so let's cover the Fire Staff. I'll just give the key points, not really a deep dive, but if you have some more specific questions on literally anything, feel free to DM me in Discord. So this whole build revolves around using Flamethrower. So what are we going to do? We're going to take Flamethrower, and because it got buffed in the most recent patch, 250% weapon damage per second, you also get the on fire dot. It's a ton of damage. So we take that, we increase the range so it's a little bit easier, increase the base damage even more, and then we get Flamethrower as no cooldown just so we can keep activating it if we get interrupted or stunned or anything like that. So we'll take all those points. And then the big ones to get right away, just take burning lasts 20% longer, and then crits also apply that burn. So these are the really big ones on the Pyromancer side, and then there's two other ones that we can flex maybe later. We'll also be taking Burnout. You'll see in the clips, I don't have Burnout yet because my staff's at 19 and I just decided not to because I just wanted to really show off the Flamethrower play. So we take all these. This will give us the most Flamethrower damage on this side. But the Fire Mage side is the one that's going to give us more of the modifiers. So I take 5% max mana on hit with heavy attacks. I then go into Clear Mind to get 5% in power when I'm above 50% mana. So this is half the time our Flamethrower is running, and then just on top of other modifiers, that's great. We'll then take Fireball, and this is going to do a big chunk of damage, but the real reason we take it is to the burn it leaves. That ticks for 10% weapon damage per second. So it has a 25 mana cost, but by taking the last point, we get this where the direct hit gives us 10% of our max mana back per person hit and reduces cooldowns. So if we hit it into a group, we can get a big Fireball off. Anyway, the burning field that lasts 6 seconds, we improve to 9 by taking Scorched Earth, and this is ticking really, really hard. So the dot for Fireball, when I'm using it on Angry Earth, is hitting anywhere from 250, 300, 400, 500, depending on modifiers, depending on the percentage health, depending on what I have on me at that time, like my empowers. It's a lot of extra damage. And then on top of that, because we take something like Watch It Burn and we get the burn from our flamethrower, this dot ticks upwards of 50 to 60 per dot stack. You'll see like 10 50s pop up because we constantly have a 10 stack dot. That means you're doing 500 damage a second. So on top of the flamethrower hitting, the fireball dot, and this stacking dot, you're just hitting constant dot damage, and it's very, very consistent. It's not high burst, but it's very consistent, tons of damage. And you can spread that in AoE and just blow your flamethrower everywhere. It's so dumb. So we take those, and we need to max out so we can get Rune of Helios. So what do we have to do? I just end up taking everything except for Fiery Restoration, in all honesty. But what you could do instead is just take Fiery Restoration instead of Spell Focus, and then I take Singed, just in case I hit with a heavy attack. I take Clear Casting to get more damage. I take Spell Slinger for more crit. And then I take Flare so that I have no mana usage on my heavy attacks. The goal of this is, like, let's say I get in a situation where I can't pop anything and I have no way to hit mana. I can just use a fireball, a couple fireballs, and I get this mana back and it's free. And then I just take Prophet of a Fire God to get even more crit strike damage. That then allows me to go into Rune of Helios, and then I still have 1 point left. Where do you put this last point? I would say either into Pyromania, so when you're below 50% max health, but there's not a lot of times where that happens. So that's an option. I think the best spot to put it actually is into Let It Burn. So that's going to give us a 10% fortify for 2 seconds, reducing damage taken. So we can just kind of take on some hits while we're getting hit by whatever enemy. Yes, flamethrower can be interrupted and staggered, but you can take light attack hits and still keep flamethrowing people. So I think Let It Burn is very, very valuable. You could also put it into Fiery Restoration, but again, the whole goal of this build is to not really heavy attack, and we don't really have any cooldowns to reduce in a sense. So I don't really think it's that valuable. You could take Combat Speed, but 10% haste isn't that much, and Trial by Fire is interesting, but I don't think it has as much value as something like Let It Burn or Pyromania. So if you're coming from the bookmark, feel free. This is the build I would suggest using for the flamethrower spam, one button, hands off the keyboard build that pumps a ton of damage and is super easy to play. Okay, now our second one is the Void Gauntlet. And the Void Gauntlet is kind of just a support cooldown piece that I would say. The real thing that you have to do, really the only thing you have to do, is I take Oblivion. So I just go into Forsaken Pack because I don't really need this Keen Confidence, but I take it anyway because this ultimate is not as worth as this one. And theoretically, I could put down an Oblivion that then gives me this, and it just drops down on the ground. If you weapon swap with Void Caller up, for some reason, it just drops wherever you're standing and still does the damage and healing. So that could be some viability in AoE there, but I would rather just flamethrow everybody. So I take Oblivion, I max it out, I'll get all those points, and then I kind of follow something similar to what I would do as if I were to use the sword in my other builds. And I get to there, and then I'll go into Petrifying Scream as well, just because I get a free Fortify. What you can do too is you can use this to root people. So if you're in PvP, you can root them, hit them with a fireball, and then flame dash through them. It'll give you that Fortify, but when you weapon swap, it'll go off. But the big thing is we get a 3-second root to give us some free damage. So you could also root a target and then flamethrower them to get your stacks procced and just keep rolling. You could fireball them. You could dash through them to get away. It's a great escape tool in PvP. It gives us a lot of PvP viability. You could Scream, then drop Oblivion, then maybe take a tick of your mana regen, whatever you need. But I would say this is kind of what we do on this side because there's not that much value on this side. So where do I go with this? I just take Fervent Thirst, even though we don't really get anything out of it because it's only ranged light attacks. I then take in mana costs are reduced, and then I just max my last points into Essence Rupture. So the Void Gauntlet, the big thing in PvE at least, is to drop Oblivion. I think Oblivion is more of a PvE kind of thing, but it is PvP when you get the broken buff for it right now. That's removing all buffs, so that's really strong as well. Anyway, Oblivion, you're going to drop it. You want to try and combo it with Rune of Helios, so you get this huge Empower window. And then if you stack that on top of our Emerald that we're using for another 20% damage, and then we get all of our other Empowers, it's nuts, people, how much you just tick for with this flamethrower, and all of your dots snapshot. So they snapshot to your empowers and your hits that you're doing at that time, meaning you can get a higher and higher and higher dot, 10 stacks, all ticking at once. You see all these numbers popping up. So Oblivion also gives you this little bit of AoE as well. It'll keep ticking for void damage about 200. So add that on top of all of our other dots. You also get a weaken, so that helps as well. 15% weaken, why not? Scream is just kind of this PvP utility, rooting people, gives you a little bit of a fortify, gives you a chance to maybe use your Void Gauntlet to get some mana back or hit a mana potion or just run or set up things. And then Essence Rupture, you can put this on. It's a big mana cost, but you can get that mana back. That's the beauty of the Void Gauntlet. and it really helps your team. It does not work with Flamethrower, unfortunately, but let's say you're in PvP, you want to mark them, hit them with Fireball, start attacking them, do whatever. Essence Rupture will heal you. And still, because we max it out, we get that 80% weapon damage heal. So you still get like a 1000 heal off of that, something like that. It's still pretty nice, so why not take it? And you don't really have any other options. The Void Gauntlet is not a main weapon here, it is simply a supplemental support piece. So if you're coming from the bookmark, the Void Gauntlet is going to be your support piece. It's going to give you an offensive cooldown, it'll give you PvP route or a PvE route to kind of time some things, maybe get a fireball off, get your flamethrower going, dash through them, run away, whatever you need. It'll also give you a fortify and maybe get a hit or two from it because when you switch weapons, it goes away. And then Essence Rupture has more PvP utility, but as well as Group Expedition, PvE utility if your healer isn't using it, which if they're not, they're kind of throwing because it's free damage, but it will not work on Flamethrower. So this is the build. Just use Oblivion as much as you can to stack your Flamethrower dot so it snapshots higher and your Flamethrower does more damage. All right, let's just fly through gearing and attributes really fast. So as far as attributes go, this is my split right now. Honestly, I just play with 100 con so that I have enough health. I think 100 con not only because of the bubble. Yes, we get some extra because of the bubble and we're playing in medium armor. But 100's a good enough value to put us at like 9k health. And I think that helps you take a couple hits. It keeps you topped off, keeps you stable. So you can literally just sit put and burst your flamethrower at everybody. Int, I just max out int. I put as many points as I can. The rest of it, 327. Yes, we do have diminishing returns, but there's nothing else with the fire staff we can really put into to get more value out of it. So if you want to go down to 50 con, up to 370 something int, whatever you want to do, that works. I just sit at 100 so that I can literally get up in melee range because you do have to play kind of close and just burst everybody down. These int bubbles, 10% damage on first hit on full health target, not really much value, but 30% duration to damage over time spells. This is great for our fire dots because it gives us more of a window where when we put them on, they don't expire as quickly, so that we can kind of run back and then run to them and they keep this damage ticking. So that one's really big. We then get 10 mana after a dodge. To dodge mechanics, you do have to kind of give it a delay, but we'll dodge, get a little bit of mana back. Maybe you're dodging something, dodge back to where you were. That's 20 free mana, back to flamethrowing. Next one, 15% elemental damage. Why not? 10% critical hit damage. This is huge. This gives us a lot of extra damage when we crit. And I'm pumping more crit chance. It's been hard to find a fire staff, but we get so much built into the tree as well. And then just 10% damage to light and heavy magic attacks if you need to do that, because maybe they're at range, you just need to throw one off. I think this gives us the best split of damage to survivability ratio in terms of endgame, and so I would really suggest doing something like this. There's my cat, he wants some attention, but this is what I would say. All right, so now on to gearing. What are we going to do for gear here? I stay medium because I think this gives us the most survivability. If you want to play in light, I think that's great, but for endgame dungeons, it's really hard to play in light and take a shot. You'll probably die. If you want to play that risk, go for it. I just always play medium because it's what I'm comfortable in. So what does that mean? We go heavy helmet, heavy chest, medium gloves, light pants, medium boots. All of my gear is con int gear. As you can see, that's what I try to shoot for, whatever split you can get, as long as you can hit some of those attributes. Perk-wise, the only perk I could actually get was Accelerating Flamethrower, which doesn't have much value, but it does help you dodge a couple mechanics. When you hit a 3-stack of burn, you'll get a 22% haste buff for 2 seconds. So consider getting that. Otherwise, the other perks that you can get more mana regeneration on your dash, and you can get more fireball damage. But all the fireball damage perks on my server were like 2k gold, so I didn't get one. That's just extra damage. You would love to have the fireball perk if you can find it. Try to get that one. Otherwise, whatever else you can get, I'm just running with extra luck gear just so I can run around in the world and whatever I can find for cheap so I can put this build out and get everything together. Accessories, big one I want to highlight is your ring. This is the only spot where you can roll extra fire damage. So I just found whatever ring I could with fire damage. I know there's refreshing on it and that's not ideal. Ideally, we could get fire damage crit, but again, I'm not going to pay 5,000 gold right now for a meme build at the moment. Neck, I just found whatever I could with int and health on it. Try to get whatever. It could be beneficial to run fortified because we do put that fortify on through our fire staff. And then for my earring, I'm just running ill-gotten gain because these are the passives I like to shoot for. Potion cooldown reduced. This is big because we chug so many mana potions. I apologize in advance if you try to run this build. You will go through mana potions like no tomorrow, but it is probably the easiest build you will ever find. Mana potions are like 25 cents anyway. So just go buy some extra ones, go make some. But refreshing toast is an absolute must to have. And then regenerating just helps. And duplicating toast is that quality of life because you do go through so many mana potions. Why not maybe have that chance where it doesn't consume? Now on weapons, fire staff. Int roll is great, and you want an emerald. This 20% damage gives you an execute window when they're below 30% health. So that's a ton of extra damage that you can put out on top of your other modifiers. I just take Keen because we have a lot of built-in crit hit damage. Now you could stack this on top, but I just like to crit more, so I took whatever I could find with Keen, and I would love to have Keenly Empowered or Vicious on here. Vicious would be the best with Keen. It's just expensive. That's the god tier role. So I got whatever I could find. I would say best in slot would probably be Keen and Vicious in general, or any Vicious Keen role with like Keenly Empowered, Keenly Jagged, anything like that. The Void Gauntlet doesn't really matter. Just get a high int roll on it. The Void Gauntlet doesn't really matter. Just take whatever you can with a high int roll because we're not going to be using it. This is mine that I use for damage in general. It's also the one I've been using for healing. And then like any other damage build, use a honing stone. I do need to work on my profession so I can get better honing stones, but this 4% weapon damage goes a long way, right? Something else I could have done was add a coating. Look, it's a free like 11% weapon damage. If you have an Angry Earth one, that'll stack even more with your Fire Staff because you do extra damage already. You can put out so much free damage. The beauty of the build is it's consistent damage. You don't really have any range you have to cover. You just stand up there and constant damage burst with a high dot. It's persistent. It's beautiful, right? It's so easy to do. All right, so let's get into some gameplay. You'll see how easy this is at this point. I'm kind of bragging to my brother that I can just take my hands off the keyboard and just sit here and do this. And I think at this point, I literally do take my hands off. I do have to move there, but it's that easy, people. You fireball, keep flamethrowing them. You just sit there AFK. Like, look at that. Look at all those damage numbers popping up. Look at how much damage I'm actually doing per second. And again, yes, they are Angry Earth, so I do more damage, but this is where a build like this would excel in Genesis. So the whole idea of the rotation is to put down Oblivion, Fireball, get your Rune of Helios going, get that dot from Fireball going, and then just Flamethrower. Rinse and repeat every single time. You just get a ton of damage. And then as your powers are going, Rens go on the target because Rens aren't just physical damage, believe it or not. And then as you get into execute phase with the Emerald and you have everything going, your dots will tick harder. Your damage per second on Flamethrower will tick harder. Fireball will hit harder and Oblivion will hit harder. So you just stack everything up. You keep bursting people down. And it is so much easy, consistent damage. You don't even have to be in the room. You can walk out of the room, aim at a target, and just hope you don't get hit. But in theory, you could just sit there for a flat 20 seconds, come back, hit a mana potion, start it back up again. If you didn't want to put the effort into doing things like min-maxing for Fireball and Oblivion. So again, what's the ideal scenario? We start off the fight, drop Oblivion. We want to snapshot our Fireball dot to both Rune of Helios and Oblivion. So we start by launching off a Fireball. That way, when we start Flamethrower, we only get Rune of Helios Flamethrower, and we have double stacked Oblivion and Rune of Helios. But we get a lot more damage per second from our Fireball dot, and that's why we want to start that off. So when you have Oblivion down, when you have Rune of Helios down, plus whatever else is on them, that Fireball will hit really hard, but the damage per second snapshots to all of your Empower buffs, everything else you have going on, and then we have both of those damage modifiers down for our first series of Flamethrowers, which will then put the dots on the target, not just that Fireball ground dot. This is where we're going to get our stacking 10 stack dot. You'll see then all these numbers popping up. You'll see like 50, 50, 50, 50, right? Each of those stacks 10 times, and that's happening per second, meaning you're doing a 500 damage per second dot. That on top is comboing with your consistent Flamethrower damage. It's also stacking with your Fireball, ground AoE, and then it's also stacking with Oblivion damage. You have very, very consistent damage output, but you do not have high burst. So on a PvE boss fight, that's where you excel. You're a dot class, you have some control there. But in PvP, you have a little less burst. Yes, you could get some burst through heavy attacks, Fireball, and dashing through people, and using your Void Gauntlet as kind of utility. But you're really going to excel in PvE because there's not as much CC movement that you have to account for, and you can just sit there like this and burn everybody, okay? It's super easy. What I will say is, you will go through mana pots very fast, so be aware of that. You'll have to go through Flamethrower, hit your mana pot, and go right back to work. Or what you can do is take that time to pull your Void Gauntlet out, harvest Essence, get that mana back really fast. It's only like 3 ticks. You'll see me do it a couple times, but it's free mana if you want to do it that way. You can also get mana back from dodging. Where do I think this build excels? I think it excels in consistent, easy damage output, and because of the buffs to Flamethrower, it has some room in the meta. I'm not going to lie. Who do I think should play this build? I think people who are new to an MMO, maybe just want an easier time. So whether it's maybe you want to play with your child, maybe you want to play with somebody who's not as aware in their MMO, maybe you just want to play with somebody who's just starting, or maybe you just want to kind of AFK farm things and do it pretty easily with solid damage output. This is the easiest build you will find in New World that will put out damage that makes you competitive and would still allow you to run endgame content. So for anybody who's just looking for an easier time, maybe you have some difficulties focusing, or maybe you have some difficulties with mechanics or just hitting certain keys, This is something you could bind everything to one mouse button, mana potions, flamethrower. You don't even have to do the other stuff, and you can still have a great time on New World and play with everyone else. So that's the build. I want to say thank you all for watching. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Couple things, I may be doing my first live stream tonight, so keep that in mind. I for sure want to do one Friday and Saturday. Also, join the Discord. We have 400 people in there. Please come and talk to me. DM me with questions. There's people DMing me all the time. I'm always here to answer your questions. Feel free to leave a comment, a like, do the YouTube stuff, and subscribe, ring the bell. I'd appreciate it. If you want to directly support me, feel free to hit up my Patreon. I have a Patreon page where I do some little things and post some cool things and just talk and ask for your input as a supporter. By no means do I expect it, but what I'm going to do is just list off my patrons like normal. So thank you to Jacob, Adrian, Thuggius, Shane, Gil, Schmeezy, Anarino, Ethan, Ajuro, Nathaniel, Thonar, Chad, Nicasio, Joseph, Tarvey, Mummy, Generic Guy, Ronan, Ralph, Bob, Florian, Blue Beagle, GDB, Jay Kitchens, Wentz, Dexter, Rich, Rob, Matthew, and Josh. Thank you all for your continual support. Thank you for that direct support. But thank you to every single one of you just for watching. Thank you for everything. I appreciate it. I hope you all have a safe and wonderful Thanksgiving. I love hearing from you, so I can't wait to talk to some of you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and thank you all for being you.